In the quiet village of Umuogele, a shocking scandal shook the land. A young boy, Obiagu, once hailed as a prodigy, became the curse of an entire community. In just 2 moons, 15 girls carried his seed, turning pride into shame and innocence into destruction. Was it love, lust, or a forbidden power hidden in his bloodline? What happened to Obiagu will leave you speechless. Stay tuned till the very end. Drop your comments. Tell us the country you're watching from. Like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to Folktales by Noble, where untold African stories come alive. The village of Umuogele always carried the scent of red earth and firewood smoke. Its dusty roads curled through farmlands and narrow compounds, where children chased goats and women pounded yam in heavy mortars. Life here followed a rhythm as old as the baobab trees that shaded the market square. Everyone knew everyone. Every name carried a story. Every family bore its pride and shame. In this village lived Obiagu, a final-year secondary school boy. To the world, he was just a skinny lad with sharp cheekbones, dark chocolate skin, and the shy smile of someone who always kept to himself. His white school shirt, though faded from many washings, was always neatly tucked into his navy blue shorts. His uniform may have been simple, but it carried with it an aura of discipline that made elders nod approvingly whenever he passed. Teachers at St. Matthew's Secondary School praised him as one of the brightest in the district. He solved mathematics problems with ease, spoke English fluently, and often stood first in class. Parents in the village used his name as a standard. "Why can't you be like Obiagu?" They scolded their children. Classmates envied his intelligence and the quiet respect he commanded. But behind that innocence, something darker was stirring. One Sunday evening, the village choir was rehearsing inside St. Peter's Anglican Church. The sun was sinking, painting the stained glass windows in shades of red and gold. Among the singers was Adaora, the pastor's only daughter, slender, light-skinned, with braided hair tied in neat pink ribbons. She sang with a voice that carried like a bird, delicate yet commanding. But that evening, Adaora's song broke. Her voice faltered, her knees buckled, and she collapsed in the middle of the hymn. Gasps filled the church. "Blood of Jesus!" one of the choir mothers cried. Pastor Ezekiel rushed forward, lifting his daughter in trembling arms. The congregation carried her to the village clinic, where the lanterns burned low and the smell of disinfectant fought against the damp air. When the nurse returned with the test results, she couldn't look the pastor in the eye. "Your daughter is pregnant," she whispered. The words hit him like a slap. Adaora, only 16, the jewel of his household, the pride of the church, pregnant. Within hours, the news had spread like wildfire. By the next morning, women were whispering at the stream, men were shaking their heads under the palm wine shed, and children were repeating the gossip with wide, curious eyes. Who was the father? Some blamed strange men from the city. Others accused traveling apprentices who often returned home flaunting wealth. But Adaora, pale and trembling under her mother's questioning, finally whispered a name. Her lips quivered as though the word carried poison. "It's Obiagu." When the name reached the ears of the villagers, laughter erupted first. "Obiagu?" they scoffed. "That skinny schoolboy? What does he know of women? Impossible! She's lying to cover up for some older man." The matter might have ended there, brushed off as a girl's desperate excuse, if not for what happened next. 2 weeks later, Ngozi and Chiamaka, both classmates of Adaora, were revealed to be pregnant too. At first, their parents tried to hide it, but swollen bellies cannot be hidden forever. When pressed, the girls, in tears, confessed the same name. It was Obiagu. This time, no one laughed. The whispers began in earnest. Could this boy be possessed? What kind of power does he have to trap 3 girls already? Is it ordinary for a child to bring such disgrace? The market buzzed with rumors. Some women swore they had seen girls sneaking toward Mama Grace's compound at night. Hunters claimed they had spotted Obiagu walking alone in the bush paths when no schoolboy should be outside. The story twisted like smoke, taking shape in fearful imaginations. At the heart of the storm stood Mama Grace, Obiagu's grandmother. She was a wiry old woman, her back bent from years of farming, but her eyes were still sharp as a hawk's. Always dressed in a faded wrapper and headscarf, she carried herself with the pride of someone who had seen too much of life to be shaken by gossip. When neighbors confronted her, she waved them off. "Lies!" she spat. "My grandson is not like that. They are only jealous of his brilliance. Do you think they like that he always takes first in class? This is their way of dragging his name in the mud." But even as she shouted, Mama Grace could not ignore what she had begun to notice. Some nights, when she woke to ease her old bones, she would hear soft footsteps outside the compound. Once, she opened the window and thought she saw a girl's shadow slip through the gate. When Obiagu returned late, he avoided her eyes. His once carefree laughter seemed forced, his shoulders heavy with a secret he dared not share. Mama Grace's heart tightened with worry, though she refused to admit it aloud. She told herself it was only village envy. But doubt crept in like a thief, whispering that perhaps, just perhaps, the boy she had raised with prayers and discipline was hiding something unspeakable. Meanwhile, in school, whispers followed Obiagu like a shadow. Girls giggled when he walked past. Boys muttered insults under their breath. Teachers, though silent, exchanged knowing looks whenever his name appeared on the register. One afternoon, as he bent over his books in the classroom, a classmate hissed loudly, "Professor! When will you teach us your secret? 3 girls already. Are you a boy or a man?" The class erupted in cruel laughter. Obiagu clenched his jaw and kept his eyes on his notes. But inside, fear twisted his stomach. The pressure in the village grew unbearable. Parents tightened curfews on their daughters. Fathers sharpened machetes and swore they would kill Obiagu if he dared step near their homes. Mothers warned their girls not to smile at him, not even to greet him on the road. But despite all this, the whispers refused to die. Instead, they multiplied, fed by the silence of the boy at the center of it all. The breaking point came one humid evening at the marketplace. The stalls were buzzing with traders calling out prices of yams, fish, and palm oil. Then suddenly, the midwife of the village, a stern woman known as Mama Nkechi, raised her voice above the noise. She had just confirmed another pregnancy, this time Ifunanya, a quiet seamstress apprentice, barely 15. And when asked, the girl had wept into her hands and confessed the same name, Obiagu. The marketplace fell silent. 15 pairs of eyes turned to stare at Mama Grace, who was buying cassava at that moment. She froze, the basket slipping from her fingers, gari spilling into the dust. "Not my boy," she whispered hoarsely. "Not Obiagu." But even she could no longer deny the truth. By the time the sun set, the matter had become too large for gossip alone. The elders convened under the old Iroko tree at the village square. They sat on carved wooden stools, their red caps tilted forward, their walking sticks resting against their knees. Voices rose and fell in anger. "This is no ordinary scandal," one elder declared. "A boy of 17, yet his name is on every girl's lips. Are we dealing with man or spirit? Perhaps he has been cursed, or perhaps he carries charms." The villagers shuddered at the thought. In Umuogele, nothing was ever just ordinary. Behind every rumor lurked the possibility of the supernatural. As darkness wrapped the village, lanterns flickered in compounds. Parents locked their gates, whispering prayers. Children huddled close, asking questions their mothers could not answer. And in the small mud-walled house at the edge of the village, Obiagu lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, his mind a storm of guilt and fear. He could hear the whispers outside, carried on the wind. What kind of boy is this? How many more girls will fall? Obiagu, Obiagu. His name had become both a chant and a curse. The scandal had only just begun. Adaora's fainting spell had opened a wound in Umuogele, and each day revealed fresh blood. 1 boy, 3 girls, now 4, and whispers of more yet to come. What power did Obiagu hold? Was it charm, possession, or simply reckless lust? The village was yet to learn that this was only the beginning of a tale that would shake Umuogele to its roots. The whispers in Umuogele had swelled into a storm. It was no longer just rumor, no longer idle gossip traded between women at the stream. By now, 5 girls carried swelling bellies, and every confession, every trembling lip, every tearful admission pointed to one boy, Obiagu. The scandal could no longer be ignored. On a hot afternoon, when the sun burned so fiercely that even the palm trees seemed to droop under its weight, the village gong sounded, "Gaboon! Gaboon! Gaboon!" The metallic echoes carried through the red earth paths, summoning all to the village square. It was Chief Nwokolo, the council head, a man with a belly that pushed against his white caftan, his red cap tilted in authority, who had called the gathering. When the villagers arrived, the atmosphere was thick with anger and fear. Mothers wept openly, clutching their daughters close as though to shield them from an unseen predator. Fathers grumbled, machetes resting at their sides. Pastors, their Bibles in hand, prayed under their breath, rebuking unseen spirits. Chief Nwokolo rose to his feet, his voice deep and commanding. "Umuogele, this is no longer a private matter. Our children are being destroyed. Our girls, once pure, now walk with swollen bellies. And when asked, they all call one name, Obiagu." The crowd erupted. "Shame! Abomination! He is possessed." Obiagu's grandmother, Mama Grace, sat at the edge of the gathering, her face buried in her wrapper. She had no words left. Each day had dragged her pride lower, each accusation stabbing deeper. But the question remained, how? How could a skinny 17-year-old boy achieve what even grown men would struggle to? What secret lay behind this mystery? The truth was stranger than anyone could imagine. Obiagu had always been a curious boy, especially about his late grandfather, Odogwu Namdi, a man the villagers remembered with equal parts respect and fear. Odogwu had been a herbalist, known for treating illnesses with roots and leaves, but whispers claimed he also dealt in charms, mixtures that could bend hearts, cloud minds, and stir forbidden desires. One rainy evening, while searching through an old wooden chest in the corner of their mud house, Obiagu found a dusty leather-bound diary. Its pages were brittle, the ink faded, but the words still carried power. It was there he first read of the leaf of desire. The diary described it as a rare plant that grew only by the riverbanks during the harmattan season. When dried, ground, and mixed into soap or oil, it could heighten attraction, causing whoever touched or smelled it to become restless, distracted, easily drawn toward the user. At first, Obiagu had laughed. To him it seemed like nothing more than a folk tale. But curiosity gnawed at him. What harm could it do to experiment? The following week, while helping Mama Grace fetch water, Obiagu noticed a patch of unusual green leaves by the stream, just as the diary had described. He plucked them, hid them in his school bag, and later dried them in secret. With trembling hands, he ground the leaves and sprinkled them into his bathing soap. The next day, something strange happened. Girls who normally ignored him began to linger near him. Adaora, the pastor's daughter, brushed his arm accidentally 3 times during class. Ngozi, usually shy, smiled at him in a way that made his chest tighten. Even Chiamaka, who once mocked him for being bookish, sat beside him during break, laughing at his jokes. Obiagu's heart pounded. Could the diary have been right? Temptation clawed at him, and though he tried to resist, the sudden flood of attention overwhelmed him. His once quiet life became a whirlwind of secret meetings, stolen glances, and whispered promises. What started with Adaora soon spread. The girls seemed unable to resist him. Some slipped into his path on their way home, pretending coincidence. Others snuck into his grandmother's compound at night, their footsteps muffled by the sandy earth. Obiagu, barely more than a boy, was caught in the storm of desire he had unleashed. He tried to convince himself he was in control, but the truth was the opposite. The more the girls came, the less he could say no. He began living 2 lives. By day, he remained the brilliant student admired by teachers, the shy boy who bowed respectfully to elders. But by night, he was consumed by reckless affairs, stumbling deeper into a pit of secrets. And with each passing week, the invisible consequences grew inside the girls. 2 months later, the truth could no longer be hidden. One by one, the girls' bellies began to swell. 15 in total, schoolgirls, apprentices, farmers' daughters, even one young married woman. Their parents dragged them before the council, demanding justice. The scene was chaos. Mothers wailed, fathers raised their fists, some shouting that Obiagu must be stoned for bringing such shame. The pastors thundered that a demon had possessed him, while others whispered that it was the spirit of his grandfather working through him. At the center of it all stood Obiagu, his face pale, sweat dripping down his brow. His secret had been exposed. Chief Nwakalo slammed his staff against the ground to silence the crowd. "This is no longer a mistake," he declared. "This is a plague upon our land. 15 girls, 15, and all point to one boy." The people shouted in agreement. Obiagu tried to speak, but his voice was drowned by curses. When news reached St. Matthew's Secondary School, the teachers were stunned. At first, they refused to believe it. How could their star pupil, their prize for inter-school competitions, be at the center of such scandal? But when confronted by the evidence, they could not defend him. The principal, a stern man known for his thick glasses and unforgiving cane, called Obiagu to his office. The air was tense, the ticking of the wall clock loud in the silence. "Obiagu," the principal said, his voice trembling with disappointment. "You were our hope, the pride of this school. But now you have brought disgrace upon our name." The boy lowered his head, unable to speak. "You are hereby suspended indefinitely." The principal declared, "Until this matter is resolved, you are no longer a student of this institution." The words struck harder than any cane. Obiagu stumbled out of the office, his books pressed against his chest, his future unraveling before his eyes. The suspension did nothing to calm the village. In fact, it fueled the rage. Families turned against each other. Parents of the pregnant girls demanded Obiagu be forced to marry their daughters. Others insisted he be handed to the police. Some even suggested he be banished entirely to cleanse the land of his curse. At night, the cries of women filled the air. Fathers paced angrily, spitting into the earth, muttering that a boy had mocked their manhood by doing what they could not prevent. In the middle of it all, Mama Grace knelt in her hut, her hands lifted toward the heavens, tears streaming down her face. God of Abraham, is this my punishment? Did I raise him only to shame me? If his grandfather's spirit is working through him, let it end with me. Do not let this disgrace consume us. But her prayers seemed to vanish into the night. Alone in his room, Obiagu stared at the diary that had started it all. Its pages mocked him now, the ink dancing like shadows. The leaf of desire, the power to draw hearts like moths to a flame. He had thought it was harmless curiosity, a boy's experiment. But now 15 lives had been changed forever, and the entire village was collapsing under the weight of his mistake. His hands trembled as he shut the diary, his mind racing. Should he burn it? Should he confess the truth about the leaf? Or should he let the villagers believe it was all his doing? Either way, the boy who had once been a symbol of hope had become a living scandal. And in Umuogele, whispers turned to cries, cries turned to curses, and curses turned to a demand for blood. The truth had emerged. The leaf of desire, his grandfather's forbidden knowledge, had set the village ablaze. 15 girls carried his seed, and the boy once praised for his brilliance now faced the wrath of an entire community. But this was only the beginning, for in seeking to control love, Obiagu had awakened forces far greater than himself, and soon the village of Umuogele would learn that when desire is stirred by unnatural means, it never comes without a price.